Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and some more Star Citizen Universe news. Now, as you probably realise by now if you've seen my videos before, I don't try and report on every single piece of news from CIG over the past week, but I like to pick out what I feel are the most important for me and hopefully for you as well watching at home. Now, last week there was a special subscriber town hall where Aaron Roberts, Todd Pappy, Tony Zurovic and the man himself, Chris Roberts, answered some questions. Here's one question I've often thought of myself. How would a PU work during logouts, ISP disconnects, on a multi-crew and player interaction basis? Well, Chris Roberts went on to explain the system that they've decided to go for with multi-crew ships. And if you're on your ship in the PU, what would happen if you get disconnected by mistake? Now, obviously, that is beyond their control. Now, the plan they have is, say you're on your multi-crew ship and you're there with some other players. Now, basically, if you was unfortunate enough to be disconnected, now the other players would carry on with the ship. Obviously, you'll be able to designate who can do what on the ship, who can take over the controls. Now, obviously, you could have AI as well, so they will help as well. Now, what would happen is that ship would persist until the last human player logged off. Now, it would have to be a bit different in a combat situation, because there could be situations where players would be a bit naughty and disconnect on purpose, so they couldn't discern a genuine disconnect due to an ISP or someone pulling the plug. So what would happen? The ship would have to persist, and you'd have to hope that the AI would be good enough to get your ship out of trouble. So that's a system they've gone with, and obviously it will be a while before we see that actually how it all works, but does sound pretty reasonable to me. Now, last week, Around the Verse returned with Chris Roberts and Sandy Gardner. Now, some of the interesting pieces from Around the Verse included a look at the development of a new armour called Explorer Armour. Now, this is set to be the start of a type of armour where you'll be able to customise it to meet your needs. They also looked at the development of hair, something I'm pretty interested in. They also showed the Drake Buccaneer, and it's actually at grey box stage at the moment. Work is also ongoing on improving the radar. Now, this is to do with helping it integrate with Item System 2.0. Now, that was pretty interesting about the hair, and I think Chris enjoyed it as well.
Seeing those new hair options. Seems like everybody came back. Thank you. Seems like
now, Eric Kieran Davis also talked about the mega map, and now this also came up in Happy Hour. Now, this week it was all about Pirate Swarm, and joining Gerard Huckleberry and Tyler Whitkin was Grey-Headed Gamer. Now, later on they were joined by Sean Tracy, who answered some questions. Now, he also explained what the mega map is, and also what is Item Component System 2.0. Now, I could explain it myself, but I think I'll let the expert do it.
The lumberyard has a concept of levels, right? And some people call these, you know, whatever stages or however you want to call it. But basically, there's a whole preload section that happens, and there's a concept of this level exists in a space. It's got 4 kilometers by 4 kilometers, or however big you want to call it. but there is a hard concept of a load of an area. Basically, what we've done is just got rid of that entire concept completely, which is pretty fundamental within the engine. And instead, we load one map, and actually, it's really small. And then what we load is objects within it and around you. So a mega map is actually just a singular map that can support every other map. The other cool part about that is we can shunt from single player to multiplayer and back, even within that mega map. So excuse me, you actually exist in one map. We load everything around you. And the nice part about that is, again, there is no offline loading screen that you have to go do. So if you want to go back to your hangar from Arena Commander, it's an instantaneous thing. We actually just stream the objects around you. And again, this required us to work a ton on the streaming that the engine does. Again, when you have a concept of level, you can just preload a whole bunch of stuff and then stream in just the things that that you need. But now, because we don't even have that concept, we have to get rid of all that preload that happens before and stream everything as much as possible. What happened within the engine was that there was, again, with the level concept, we also had an entity concept, so that you place a bunch of objects in the world, and those are entities. Those entities have a very specific set of properties, and this is the animated object entity. So if you're going to animate an object, this is the object you use. If you're going to put a character down, that's an AI human entity, so that goes in. If it's a water volume, well, there you go. You put a water volume entity in. What Item 2.0 is it pulls us away from these preset kind of entities, and it moves all those properties into a component system. So what this really means is that everything becomes an item. But then there's features that each of these items can share. So a good example is like a character item is very similar to now a ship item, because they can carry armor values, they can carry item ports, they can carry weapons, they can carry all their damage modification and ammo modification stuff. So we can put those components onto the entities, onto this kind of, let's call it a global entity, or let's call it a generic type entity. So that way, when we get some pretty complex components, we can actually just plug them in and not worry about, okay, well, we need to be able to do that on that entity, we need to be able to do that on this entity, we need to be able to do this on this entity. It's actually just a matter of making that one component, and those can be added to a whole variation, a whole huge set of different items. So I don't know, again, maybe that went a little too long and didn't really explain the Item 2.0 thing, but it's a componentized entity system.
Yeah. Now, it may well be worth your while checking out the store at Port Olisar, Garrity's Defence, because you may well find that you're entitled to equip some free armour. It depends when you back the game, because I must admit I was doing some window shopping just to have a look at the armour, and I realised that there was several suits of armour which I could equip without paying any Alpha UEC. This is, I think, from depends on when you back the game, one of the stretch goals, and possibly one of the armours might have come with a ship. I'm not sure, but it's worth checking out. And also, one thing I did check out when I tried the armour on was the actual visual fidelity of the armour. Now, I capture all my footage in 2560 by 1440, and by zooming in you could see how everything holds up really well, the textures on the armour. To be honest, I think the assets are totally ready for when 4K becomes pretty common, and I think in the years ahead, as the price of the power for graphics cards falls, I think 4K will become more and more accessible to everyone, and I'm certainly aiming to go to 4K in the not too distant future. But the armour is really nice, and it certainly is worth checking out if you're entitled to actually wear it without paying out any Alpha UEC. This week also saw the release of the production schedule report. Now, it's available on the RSI site, and first of all I should stress that the dates are only estimate. It's very likely that any of the dates in these reports will not be met. Now, what we're talking about at the moment is patch 2.61, which is basically going to be a bug fixing patch for 260, and also it's going to bring in some things which were left out, especially behind the scenes network little tweaks into the game. Now there's also been talk of another patch beyond that. Now this is most interesting. This is going to be of course 2.62, and this is going to fulfill one of the stretch goals, which is to introduce servers for different regions throughout the world. So that's good news for people in Europe and Asia, and hopefully Australia as well. So let's hope they get their own server down under. Well, thank you very much for watching once again. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to like, and it will help the channel a lot if you could consider subscribing. So until next time, wherever you're watching out in that big universe, you take care, and I'll see you sometime soon. Bye for now.